Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. We are very excited to welcome you to the University of Calgary. My name is Ruth and I am entering my second year in the Bachelor of Health Sciences program, majoring in biomedical sciences.
I think the minute you do that, yeah, we can. Yeah, the minute you do that, it goes out. So don't do full screen. Just leave it like that.
Okay, sorry, we were having some technical difficulties, so we're just going to start again. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. We are very excited to welcome you to the University of Calgary. My name is Ruth and I'm entering my second year in the Bachelor of Health Sciences program, majoring in biomedical sciences, and I'm one of the Chancellor's Club scholarship recipients. On behalf of the team who has been working very hard on this webinar, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are very excited to share our experiences with all of you. We will be posting this webinar on our website, so if you have missed anything or would like to rewatch the webinar, feel free to go on our website, ufcoutreach.wixsites.com/webinar, where you can find the video in the webinar archive section before we get started. I just want to say a quick disclaimer. We are not affiliated with the University of Calgary. So who are we? We are the University of Calgary Student Ambassadors Club. We are a student-led organization made of recipients of the Chancellor's Club Scholarship, and we work together to volunteer in various initiatives around campus and the community. We meet regularly to plan social and volunteer events, such as retreats and mixers. Most importantly, we are friends. Throughout the year, we hold various webinars, such as this one, for high school and incoming first-year students on topics such as scholarship opportunities, introduction into your first year in post-secondary studies, getting involved, and so on, in hopes of providing you with some information that we wish we received in our first year. We hope these webinars make your first year at the university a little easier. All information shared with you on today's webinar is comprised of our personal experiences, so we really advise you take notes. Also note that there will be a live question and answer period at the end of the webinar, so please email us all your questions at ufchighschooloutreach@outlook.com throughout the webinar and stay tuned to the end of the webinar to get some answers. Speaking today are some members of our club, so we will introduce ourselves, what year we are in, and what we are studying. So to start, we are all in the Bachelor of Health Sciences program, majoring in biomedical sciences. Again, I am Ruth Lagessa, and I'm entering my second year.
So my name is Catherine, and I'm going into my second year as well.
My name is Jenny Liao, and I am entering in my fourth year.
My name is Monica Gabriel, and I'm entering my second year.
Also, a big thank you to Danielle Chang, Christina Tang, and Monica Appel, who worked behind the scenes to make today possible. Lastly, thank you to Sam Shang, who will be overlooking emails and questions for the webinar. Let's get started. So the general outline that we will follow through this presentation is as follows. General worries and anxious thoughts we had coming into our first year, what we wish we had known in our first year, how to read and interpret your schedule, a list of essential school supplies and related materials that you will need to survive your class, study tips, important resources offered to you on campus to help you with your academics, and a list of our favorite things at the University of Calgary. So now Catherine will discuss some worries and anxieties we had coming into our first year.
Okay, thanks, Ruth. So one of the biggest worries people have when moving from high school to university is having to start fresh. So whether it's moving away from home, living on your own for the first time, or saying goodbye to your friends and family. And to be perfectly honest, university can be pretty overwhelming for the first few weeks, and it might take a while for you to really feel at home at the U of C. The best advice I can give you, however, is to know that you are definitely not alone. Literally everyone else coming into first year is probably just as scared or worried as you are, and every upper year went through the exact same thing when they started university. One thing that I found from my first year is that there is so much support for you wherever you go. People who care about your success and well-being and are willing to answer your questions and help you at every step of the way, whether it's your program advisor, an upper year mentor, or the friends you meet during orientation. For those of you coming to the U of C from outside of Calgary, the Welcome Center is a great resource to look into. They have lots of information for new students about living in Calgary, they give out tons of freebies, and they hold a bunch of events that can help you get to better know the city and your peers. So if you're moving into residence this September, you might be wondering what it's really like living in res and how it works. As someone who lived in residence last year, I found it to be a really great way to meet people and build a tight-knit community. I met some of my best friends through residence, and I made a ton of amazing memories. Additionally, res is super convenient, so you can get away with getting up 10 minutes before your class starts, and it's really easy to plan study sessions or nights out. Right now, I'll briefly go over some basics about living in residence. So first years usually live in Rundle or Kananaskis, which are identical buildings, in either a single or double room. So each floor will have about 55 students, and it's headed by a community advisor or a CA, who basically helps create a community, organizes events, and makes sure rules aren't being broken. If you're in a double room, your roommate will be assigned to you based on the profile you filled out, unless you requested a roommate. If you want to get to know them before move-in, you can message them through your residence portal. Another thing you might be wondering about is food. So when you purchase your meal plan, which goes onto your unit card, the majority of it goes towards your meal plan money, which can be used at the dining center, which has lots of different options and cuisines available. The rest of it is your food funds. So these can be used at a bunch of different vendors all around campus, like Domino's, Starbucks, Tim Hortons, and Jugo Juice. If they accept your food funds, they'll have like a sign or something saying so. There's also a bunch of resources available to you as a resident. So all floors have lounges where you can study, and there are lots of community events to attend with your floor or a couple of friends. If you're interested in getting involved in a leadership capacity through residence, consider applying for the Residence Students Association. Finally, if you have questions or concerns throughout the year, your CA is a great person to talk to. Okay, so it can also be nerve-wracking to have to attend classes in a lecture hall with hundreds of other students. And unfortunately, most of your first year classes will probably be like this. However, it's definitely still possible to be engaged and to get to know your professor and peers during class. The lecture material will always be projected onto large screens in the lecture hall, and the professor will always speak with a mic. Additionally, feel free to approach your professors after class or during office hours to ask questions and introduce yourself. Believe it or not, they're actually normal people and they have lots of insights to share. Making these connections early on can also help you in potentially seeking out job placements, research opportunities, and reference letters. Finally, another major worry people struggle with going to university is time management and procrastination. So this is something all of us have struggled with and are still working on. Given the heavier academic load, a ton of extracurricular opportunities, and the newfound independence that comes with starting university, the biggest advice we have for you is to find balance, and especially make time for yourself and the things you love. It can be really easy to overcommit yourself to different clubs or activities. But at the end of the day, you'll be much happier spending quality time with friends and family and making time for self-care, rather than overburdening yourself with too many commitments. Although it is very valuable to participate in extracurricular activities during university, put your time and effort into the activities that you are passionate and truly care about. When it comes to studying and organizing my schedule, I found it helpful to use a planner to map out my semester in terms of midterms, finals, and projects, as well as make weekly to-do lists. I also like to prioritize my tasks in terms of their importance and their urgency. Finally, understanding your study habits, whether they're good or bad, and how you learn best can be really important in helping yourself study effectively and succeed in class. For example, think about what time of day you study best, where, and with who. Then plan your schedule to accommodate for these habits. Okay, so now I'm going to pass it off to Jenny, who's going to talk to you about your class schedule and what everything means.
Thank you, Catherine. So here we have a sample schedule of the courses that you might be taking, and this may not completely resemble your schedules, as you may be from taking other courses. But if you have any specific questions about your courses, you can always ask your academic advisor. So I'll briefly go over what you may encounter in your class schedule. So first of all, labs. Typically in labs, there will be an experiment to complete within the laboratory period, and then a lab report that is either due before you leave the lab or at the next lab. So for lab reports due at the end of the lab, make sure you leave enough time to complete both the experiment and the report. I would recommend leaving about half an hour to an hour for the report. Lectures are the traditional classes that you would take to learn the content, and the professor typically will go through PowerPoint slides, but there may also be an interactive component. The format of the classes really depend on the professor and how big the classes are. For tutorials, these may teach additional information that could be fair game for the exam, or they may give out worksheets/quizzes that serve to reinforce the material learned in class. These worksheets may be for marks depending on the course. So math labs, this might be confusing because you may wonder how we do experiments in math class. But math labs are essentially like tutorials. The professor will give practice problems related to the content that was just learned. You can bring these problems and work through them with the teaching assistants during the lab period. You can also ask the teaching assistants for clarification of a concept that you didn't understand in class. It's really there as a further support to help you learn the concepts. Now on to Monica, who will address some of the things that we wish we had known in our first year.
Great, thank you, Jenny. So first are some Facebook groups that you can join that can help you with assignments and remembering your exams. There's a lot of ones for a lot of courses, so most likely there will be a few in your faculty. An example I have is Math 267 U of C Winter 2017 as an example. If you're in a similar course, you can Google, or not Google, just put it into your Facebook and it should come up. And you can request to join that class. Another useful resource is the U of C Textbook Exchange. As time is coming to start looking into your textbooks, this is a great Facebook page as well where you can buy textbooks from your fellow students and sell them later on. You would also have to ask for permission to join this, but it will be a great resource for you. Another thing is the dental and health coverage that you get as a student at the U of C. So the link that you see is a link that explains what the dental and health coverage that you get from the university in detail and how you can choose to opt out of it if you would like. There is a specific opt-out date that you have to be decided on before then, but other than that, you automatically have your dental and health coverage. Another thing too is that there's 2 dental clinics on campus, one located in Yamliska Hall and the other one in Mac Hall. Also, if you have family coverage, you can use it at our university pharmacy, which is also located in Mac Hall, and you can get your coverage there as well. An important note on that is that we also have the Wellness Center. So the SU Wellness Center has walk-in clinics and mental health support on campus. It is also located in Mac Hall. If you're a resident student and you live in residence, there is Wellness in Residence. So this is mental health support that is offered for in-residence students. You can get in touch with your CA or your community advisor to learn more about that. There's also the Women's Resource Center, which offers peer support if you feel like you would like to talk to a student or a peer about how you're feeling. The Women's Resource Center has great peers for that. Another point too is that if you are moving from another province, make sure that you apply for the extended health provincial coverage since you are going to be outside of your home province for more than 3 months. So if you are doing that, make sure you apply early because you will get a certificate from your Ministry of Health telling you that you do have student coverage. So that is something important, and even if it's a little getting close to when school starts, you still have time to do that, and just make sure you fill out the paperwork. It should be on your local website. So on to lockers. Lockers are a great resource. I know I really enjoyed having a locker in high school. So if you are interested in renting out a locker for just the fall semester or for the full year, you can just follow the website that we have on the slide.
and you can rent out your locker then. It's going to be on your website, on the website, and you will have to fill out an agreement for it. I would do this as soon as you can, as they do fill up quickly. And last but not least, we're going to be talking about office hours, TAs, and emailing profs. My friends have touched on office hours, but just to recap, it is where you can visit your prof outside of your class, and it is very helpful. If you want to know when you can do that, that's going to be on your course outline. So this is usually the document that outlines your course, and most profs will go over that in the first week. So that's important. It can be overwhelming to ask questions in a lecture hall of 400 students, so I do definitely recommend that you take advantage of this. There's also TAs, or your teaching assistants. They are usually master's or PhD students, and they will be the ones in your tutorials and labs. They will mark a lot of your assignments, and they are very useful resources as well. So a note on emailing your profs: always start with hello or hi, not hey. Always refer to them as doctor if they are your prof. Most TAs will tell you if they would rather be referred to by their first name or last name. Always use short and concise emails using proper grammar. There's lots of ways to end your email, but always mention your full name, especially if it's your first email, and your UCID. In your subject line, include the name of the course, your lecture section, and your full name. Most profs will talk about emails in the first week, and they will mention any specific details that they want you to include. The next thing that we're going to talk about is dates and calendars. So the tuition deadline for fall 2017 is September 29th. It's very important that you keep that in mind, because you will have to have paid your fees by then. And this is also the same deadline for your residence fees. They need to be paid by September 29th as well. The university calendar is a website, and it's an incredibly useful resource that you can use to find out the dates for all breaks, holidays, registration dates, and the start and end dates for every semester, and the due dates for your tuition fees. I'd really encourage all of you to take a look at it every once in a while, and especially if we're planning any family vacations or long trips. You can follow the link on the slide, or simply Google University of Calgary academic schedule, and it should be the first link that comes up. So now Catherine is going to talk about the essentials list.
Okay, thanks, Monica. So one of the biggest differences I noticed between high school and university is that you have a lot more freedom regarding how you take in information and stay engaged during class. For the most part, students generally either take notes by hand, which is usually what I do, on their laptops, or using a tablet. However, all methods have their pros and cons, and I recommend choosing based on your learning style and what you're most comfortable with. So for example, I'm a really visual learner, and I enjoy drawing concept maps, diagrams, and color coding my notes. So doing them by hand is something that just works for me. However, using a laptop or a tablet can be much faster, and it allows you to organize your notes very efficiently. It's also important to consider how your professor teaches the material. In most of your first year classes, the professor will put up PowerPoint slides and either add to them verbally or fill in blanks in the slides as he or she speaks. If you do notes by hand, I would definitely recommend printing out the slides beforehand and then just adding to them or annotating in class. However, some classes may have professors who prefer just speaking about the material rather than using slides. It might be better in this case to take notes using a laptop, which is usually much faster to ensure you don't miss anything. So to summarize, if you're unsure of how you want to take notes, I would probably buy a couple notebooks, but also bring your laptop or your tablet to class for the first few lectures just to test both methods out and see what works best for you. If you're living in residence this year, I would also consider investing maybe in a cheap printer, because you will have to print out all your worksheets and lab materials yourself, as well as the lecture slides. If not, you can also go to the library, which has pretty cheap printing, but definitely a tip is to print double-sided and put like at least 4 slides on a page just to save paper. Okay, so something else you guys might be wondering about is textbooks. So unfortunately, textbooks are really, really expensive, but there are lots of ways to save money. So to find out what textbooks are required for your course and which ones are optional, you can search them up on the U of C bookstore website, which is on the slide. Remember to be very specific about your course and lecture section here, as different professors might require different textbooks for the same course. Also, don't be afraid to wait until your classes have already started before purchasing your textbooks. Most professors will go over what textbooks are required for their course during the first lecture, as well as whether you can use an older edition or if the textbook is available for free online. So for example, if you're in Math 249 or 265, there's actually a free online textbook, so you don't actually need to buy one. Anyways, so once you know which textbooks you need to purchase for sure, you can either buy them new at the bookstore or used at Bound and Copied. Buying used saves a ton of money, but just make sure you're buying the correct edition. Another way to save money is to also purchase a loose leaf textbook. So that's basically like a textbook that has individual pages and then you put them all together in a binder. But that also lets you kind of take out a chapter that you just want to study and bring to class or something like that. In addition, some other essentials I would recommend investing in are, so a lightning cable or a portable charger for your phone. So this is super useful, especially if you plan on staying late after class for club meetings or if you're just hanging out or something like that. As well, it's really nice to have a really dependable travel mug or water bottle. So there's tons of places to fill up your water bottle on campus, and you also get discounts at Good Earth or Starbucks if you bring a reusable mug. And of course, it's a lot better for the environment. I would also highly recommend getting a planner or using the calendar on your phone to keep track of deadlines, exams, events, and extracurricular commitments. Everything kind of it starts piling up mid-semester, and having everything written down with reminders is really helpful. It's also great for jotting down random notes and reminders throughout the day. Finally, if you're living in residence, I would also consider bringing things like a power bar or extension cords, flip-flops, speakers if you like music, a really soft blanket, air freshener, a printer, a portable shower caddy, and yeah. Oh, and also don't bring garbage bins because those are already provided in your room. Okay, so now I'm going to pass it off to Jenny again, who will speak about some study strategies.
So juggling multiple classes is definitely not easy. You'll be given a lot of different assignments and exams all at the same time, and the workload may feel overwhelming every once in a while. And so it's very important to be able to manage your time. So something that I do is to go over the course outline at the beginning of your classes, because the outline will contain the deadlines for all or most of the assignments that you'll be given over the semester. And then put those deadlines somewhere that you'll check often. So I personally use a student planner, but it's up to you what you use as long as it's something that you'll look at frequently. It's also a good idea to estimate how much time you might need to complete each assignment. So for instance, you might have an essay that's due on September 26th, and then you estimate that you might need 2 weeks or so to finish. And so in your planner, circle a date that is 2 weeks before the deadline, so somewhere around September 12th, and that's the date that you should aim to begin your assignment. This strategy helped me prioritize which assignments to do first, because I know exactly when I should be starting my assignments or begin studying for an exam. It also helps to organize all the things that I need to get done. You'll likely have to write a lot of essays in university, and I would suggest first of all is to plan out your essay before writing to help organize your thoughts. You should know what the main idea of your essay is, and every part of the essay needs to relate or support that main idea. Also, be prepared to write multiple drafts. The first draft is rarely ever perfect, and you need to ask yourself as you read over your essay whether the structure of the essay makes sense, whether all of the ideas are connected to each other, and for grammatical errors. And finally, I would not recommend leaving essays to the last minute, because essays require a lot of thinking and planning in order to be coherent. So many essays will also require you to do research beforehand, and so it's a good idea then to get started early. And so one strategy that I use is to set smaller deadlines for yourself. So you can make mini deadlines of when you should be done researching, when you should have an outline made, when you have written when you should have finish writing the first draft, and etc. And then that will lead up to the final deadline of when you have to hand in your paper. I would recommend starting the writing sooner than later. It's okay that if you find that as you write, you might need more research on a specific topic, and in fact that will likely happen. But what you don't want is spending most of your time researching and then haven't started writing at all until the 2 hours before the deadline. And then finally, a few tips for studying for exams. There are a lot of great strategies that you may use already. So for instance, making study notes, having a study group, and doing practice problems, which is really important for subjects such as math and physics. make sure you clarify the concepts that you don't understand, either by asking the professor at office hours, the teaching assistant, or your friends and peers, and try to avoid cramming. Now that you're ready to handle the academic side of university, Ruth will now talk about getting involved on campus.
Thanks, Jenny. So here I will try to answer some important questions that you may have on the topic of getting involved in campus clubs and community service. First question, why get involved in extracurricular activities and the community? There are several reasons why you should get involved at the University of Calgary, many of which are also the reasons why you should get involved while in high school. First, most graduate schools, scholarships, and awards will look at your extracurricular involvement when you apply, and it is important to have several involvements to discuss on these applications. Most of the time, your extracurricular involvement is just as important to graduate schools and scholarships as your GPA. But you should not just get involved for the purpose of looking good on paper. Getting involved takes up a bit of your time every day, so why not get involved in things you will benefit from and actually enjoy? There are over 300 clubs at the university that you can join, and in the rare case that you can't find anything you like, you can start your own club. Getting involved in the community service and campus life builds character. The types of things that you are involved in often reflect who you are to whoever reads your CV. If you love humanitarianism, join clubs such as Amnesty International and UNICEF. But if your interests lie in science, mechanics, and technical work, join clubs such as STEM Fellowship or iGEM. Want to learn about a new culture? You can join clubs such as the Abisha Student Society or the Indian Student Association. There really is a club for everyone, so why not try something new and make some friends? That is really one of the main reasons why you should get involved. To make friends. Coming into your first year, you won't have much time to chat in class or while studying. Clubs, bands, and sports teams are where you are going to make most of your friends, so don't miss out by not getting involved. Okay, now you know why you should get involved. Where do you sign up? The first place to look is Clubs Week, which will be from September 18th to the 22nd. That week, clubs will be set up all around campus with pamphlets and posters about their club. But don't join clubs immediately. Visit as many club booths as you can and collect information about the clubs, such as club intentions, events, meeting dates, and time commitment requirements. Then try to see which clubs fit your liking and schedule the best. Then return to the selected booths to sign up. If there's a club that stands out to you, which you would like to help lead, make sure to ask the club about exec position openings. Although it is your first year, most clubs will allow you to take on leadership roles as long as you have the required experience. If not, most clubs have junior exec positions where you can shadow execs during your first year, then take on the role of the exec you shadowed in your second year. Moving on, here are some mistakes that we made in our first year getting involved on campus that we hope you avoid. Mistake number 1. This is the most common mistake, and that is getting too involved. Coming into your first year, it is very easy to get too eager and fill up all your schedule with too many clubs and fall into the trap of becoming overwhelmed and fall behind in your homework, studying, as well as not get enough sleep or time for self-care. Although getting involved is very important, you also need to keep in mind that the reason you are in university is to get an education. Get involved enough so that you are still getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep a day, while having some time for homework as well as some time to just relax. There is never really an ideal number of clubs to be involved in, but our suggestion is 3 to 4 commitments, 1 or 2 of which you hold a leadership position in. Mistake number 2 is the opposite of the first, and that is not getting involved at all. By not getting involved at all, you ensure that all your time is dedicated to your GPA, but this is just as bad as the first mistake, if not worse. If you wish to apply to various programs offered on campus, your GPA is most likely the lowest weight requirement. Let's take Scholars Academy, for instance, a program that offers individualized support for the university's most outstanding undergraduates. Many undergraduates wishing to pursue graduate studies will most likely apply or think about applying to the Scholars Academy at one point in their studies. Although there is a GPA requirement to apply, GPA is only 10% of the application. The rest of the 90% is comprised of a personal statement, CV, and recommendation letter. You don't want to find yourself in a position where you can only fill 10% of the requirements. This goes the same for most award and internship applications. So moving on from the topic of getting involved, Catherine will discuss some of our favorite things at the University of Calgary.
Okay, so like Ruth said, to wrap up our formal presentation, we're just going to end up with a list of our favorites at the university. Okay, so I'll start with food. Okay, so a couple of places. There's a lot of great places, but some favorites are Brew and Blends. So this is located in Kinesiology or Scurfield. There's 2 locations. Basically, they have smoothies and they have really, really good bagels, and they also take your meal plan money. So if you're a resident student, this is a really great way to get breakfast if you pass by on your way to class. Another cool fact about the U of C is that there's actually 4 Tim Hortons locations. 3 of them are right next to each other, and then 1 of them is located in Murray Fraser. So this is great for getting coffee or a quick snack or lunch on the way to class, but just be prepared for the lineup. So even though there's 4 locations, it's still really, really popular. Okay, so favorite study space. So I guess like the go-to study space is the Taylor Family Digital Library. This is a really great place, although it can get really popular and very crowded around exam time. If you're looking for somewhere with a lot of space, such as when you're studying with friends, the McKimmie basement has a ton of tables and is pretty out of the way, so not all students know about it. So to find this space, you go through the hallway connecting McKimmie and Murray Fraser, and then there's a staircase on your right side. Gallagher Library is also a great place to study in between classes if you're around the science or ICT buildings. Okay, so favorite class. So I've only done 1 year of university, but my favorite class from last year was Sociology 201 with Dumas. Not only was it a really nice break from all the science courses I was taking, it was a really engaging and interesting class where we covered a variety of topics ranging from gender to suicide to socialization. Ruth's favorite class was English 201 with Jess Nickel, which was focused on storytelling, the truth behind stories, and identifying intersectionality in our daily lives. Jess is a super passionate and inspiring professor who will keep you engaged all class long. And then favorite website. So this is actually really helpful. The University of Calgary's interactive room finder helps you navigate the university and your classes. I think everyone in first year gets lost for like the first 2 months, so this is a really great way to like find where you have to go for your class. And finally, favorite part of first year. So my favorite part about it was definitely meeting new people. The university is huge and there are so many incredible people to meet who've done some really inspiring things. Everyone's also super nice as well, and for me it was great just learning about their backgrounds, gaining new perspectives, and just getting to know them. And so going into orientation week, which is happening in like 3 or 4 days, I think, don't be afraid to approach new people or strike up a random conversation with the person next to you. Honestly, our best advice is just to go into first year with an open mind. There will be highs and there will be lows, but honestly, you're going to have the time of your life. And on behalf of all of us, we'd like to wish you guys all the very best as you start this new chapter. So that kind of wraps up the presentation section of the webinar. So now we're going to move on to answering some of the questions you guys submitted. So if you come up with any more questions during this time, feel free to add it to the chat, which is located beside the presentation, or send it to our email, which is, I think, on the slide, yeah. And we'll try to answer as many as possible. Okay.
Okay, hello, it's Monica again. I'll be answering some of the questions. So one of our questions was, will there be a free student planner in orientation? No, there will not be a free student planner, but the U of C bookstore does sell planners. You can also get them from Walmart. You can use your Microsoft Outlook calendar on your phone as well if you don't want to pay for a paper one. I personally really like using a digital calendar just because I can set reminders on my phone for my assignments and have it all in one place, and I can update it from my phone or my laptop. You also get free Microsoft Office with the university when you initiate your university email account, so the Outlook calendar comes for free. So that is an option there if you want it.
So our next question is, do professors have podcasts? For the most part, no, not really, and that's why it's important to make sure to go to classes. If you really cannot make a class due to a conflict, you can ask notes from classmates, and as well you can also email your professor for notes. but for the most part, we're not going to have podcasts.
Okay, next question is, what is our laptop recommendation for university? What worked for us, Apple versus Windows? So it really depends on the program you're in. So since we were in health sciences, for us, Apple worked best because most people do have Apple. So that means that your computer is going to be compatible with other Apple products, which makes group work easier. Note-taking applications on Mac are also generally more popular. But if you're taking a program such as engineering, this will not be the case. You can't actually have an Apple computer for engineering. You should have Windows. You need touchscreen note-taking, and the Windows Surface Pro is the recommended laptop. So it really does depend on your program. If you are going to be taking notes a lot with your hands on your laptop, go with Windows. And so like programs such as English, business, health sciences, Apple would be recommended. And then anything in physics, mathematics, or engineering, Windows would be recommended.
Okay, so the next question was, so do profs tell you what you need in your first lab, or do you need to be ready for the first lab? Okay, so for the most part, yes, your professor will go over what you need for your lab and kind of how it works in the class before your lab. So labs don't actually start in the first week of classes. They probably start around like 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. And this gives you time to buy all the required supplies. So for science labs, I guess, for the most part, you'll need things. You'll need a lab coat, you'll need safety glasses, and you'll need a lab manual. And this is all things you can buy at the bookstore. These do sell out pretty quickly though, so I would probably go early. And as well, to get prepared for your lab, I would also read the lab manual and also arrive early to your first lab. Yeah, that's basically it though.
Hello. So is it free to print notes in the library? No, it is not. So if you want to print at the library, you can add Unicard dollars to your Unicard. So this is something that you can do at the library itself. When you walk into TFDL, you're going to find a little red box thing on the wall that you can put your Unicard into and add money to it. And then when you approach one of the printers, it will ask you to use your Unicard, and then it will charge your Unicard for the pages that you print. So that is how printing works at the library.
Okay, so next question is, when and where will we be doing Chem Lab safety courses? Does this course require registration? So with this, you will actually get a link from your professor that will be emailed to you prior to starting the class or a few days into the class. And you just have to follow that link and register and do it. If your professor has already sent you an email saying to complete this course and she didn't send the link, or he or she didn't send the link, you can email them back. It's also important to check your D2L news section. Sometimes they will post that. So after you have checked all your emails and going through D2L, if you still don't have the link, then that's when you should email your professor asking for the course registration.
Okay, so the next question was, should we use hardcover or loose leaf textbooks? So this is largely, I think, a personal choice, and I think it depends mostly on how you want to use your textbook. So usually for your textbook, you'll have to do like readings or do practice questions. And if you plan on like studying with your textbook at home, hardcover works well for this. Like you can just leave it at home because your textbooks are really heavy. So if you're just planning to use it at home, you can go with a hardcover. Loose leaf is good though, however, if you're planning on studying a lot, like say at the library, or if you're going to bring it to class, because with loose leaf, you can just take out like the chapter or like the readings that you need, and then you can just bring that with you. You don't have to like bring like a giant textbook that weighs like 10 pounds. Yeah, so that's basically it. Loose leaf is also cheaper, so that might be an option. But another thing to note is that not all textbooks come in the loose leaf format. It's usually just like the really popular like textbooks for like big classes, like, I don't know, like Bio 241 or something like that. So that's, yeah, I guess those are the things to consider.
Okay, so another question is what to bring to the first day of classes. So depending on what your course load is, I would personally bring a notebook and a laptop. And then, for example, if I have a physics course and I decide that the notebook works better for that, then I'll use the notebook for it. If I have an English and I find that my laptop works better for that, then I use an English or use my laptop. So essentially it comes down to what course you're in and what works best for you. But because it's your first day, I think it's best that you have both options with you and then decide on, depending on the teaching style and how you feel you learn best, which format works best for you to take notes. Another question as well is how helpful is the online sources included with the new textbook, and is it worth it? So that's a good question, but it's very specific to what course you're taking and how you learn. So if you like videos and those very specific content things that would come with it, then I think it's worth your investment. It also depends on the specific course. So I would talk to an older student who took that specific course and see what their experience was like using the actual textbook or using the online resources, since this is something that's very variable and changes from class to class.
Okay, so our next question is how do we make notes from textbooks and how to know if the information of the textbook is something that's worth remembering. So usually at the beginning of each lecture, professors will list out the learning objectives, and these are what the professor wants you to know and to get out of from each lecture. And so they're really great for guiding your learning and as well as your reading in textbooks. So definitely at the beginning of each lecture, refer to that learning objective slide. As well, professors may also be more specific in explaining the readings and what they want you to focus on. And so that's also another way to know what's important in the textbooks to keep in mind. And then also another question is when or where is the Clubs Week, and is there any place online that I can learn more about clubs? So Clubs Week is from September 18th to the 22nd, and it's located in the Mac Hall Student Center. And basically it's essentially a bunch of booths of clubs that will hand out information about their clubs as well as sign-up sheets. In terms of where to find them online, you can search up UCalgary SU clubs on Google and it should come up. It's a page of all of the 300 plus clubs at U of Calgary.
Okay. So the next question is, what is the best essay format? Is it like critical analytical response, the way it was in high school? So we do recommend that you actually drop the whole like hammer. Okay. We recommend that you do drop the whole like hamburger format that you learned in high school because that is not the case anymore. Different teachers or different professors use different formats, and your professor will specify this at the beginning of the class and will reteach the proper format for writing. Generally speaking, there is going to be the intro, body, and conclusion, but it's not going to be the same as high school where you have five paragraphs with one intro, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. In terms of if you did want to get ahead, a book that I highly recommend that I personally chose to buy from the bookstore and read is called Reading and Writing About Literature. It's the 4th edition by Janet Gardner and Joanne Diaz. So again, it's called Reading and Writing About Literature. And it goes over how you analyze books, the proper essay format in the university. And it has many example essays, response to texts. And I found that that several of the texts that they reviewed in this book are actually books that you review in your English courses. So I highly recommend that book. The next question is, should I take notes before class? What's the best method? Full notes, a quick skim, etc. So yes, I highly recommend that you read ahead through the textbook and take notes. You won't have time to do this for all your classes because you will have homework to complete and then it's in the extra time that you're reading ahead. So a good idea is to skim through classes that you're already good at, briefly look at main concepts through the textbook or through information on D2L. And then for classes that you think you struggle in, read in detail, Complete some of the practice questions to the best of your abilities, and then make notes of hard concepts that you can ask your professor in class the next day or during office hours.
Okay, so another question we had was, are there any informal music ensembles or bands that you can join on campus? So yeah, there are. I was in the symphonic band last year. So there's a lot of different like bands and ensembles depending on your skill level. So I guess the symphonic band is kind of like if you're not like a professional or like a music prodigy or something like that. Wind ensemble is a little bit more advanced, and it's like one player per part in the music. And then there's orchestra, which generally is for like music majors or if you're like very, very talented, I suppose. There are auditions for all the music ensembles. I wouldn't stress too much about it though, because the people who run them are really nice, and it's pretty low key, especially if you're just like trying to get into one of like the, I guess, more informal ensembles. If you are interested though, I think auditions are happening very soon or around this time. So I would contact Gareth Jones. You can like Google him. His email will be on Google somewhere. Yeah, and you can contact him. He runs the ensembles. In terms of like, so they're actually courses, like these music ensembles are all courses that you can join. They're full year. They're probably rehearsals about once or twice a week, and they're pass fail. So they're not like super like intense or anything like that. There's also chamber ensembles. I don't know a lot about them, but they do exist. And the school also rents instruments for free. So you just have to pay a deposit. Another question we had was, I'll try to combine these two. So the best place to get tutoring or academic help. So there's a bunch of different resources, I think, if you're looking for academic help here. One thing, so in terms of like the free resources, one good place is PASS. So what this program is, it's essentially like they're upper year students who run review sessions for certain classes that are like pretty big, right? Like physics or bio or something like that. There'll be like PASS sessions that are held regularly, and they'll give you worksheets. They'll kind of like go over all the materials, stuff like that. As well, the Student Success Center is a great resource because they provide math tutoring, and they also provide writing help. So they'll actually like help you go over your essays and like kind of like edit them and like go through structure and stuff like that. We did have a question about how to book like the Student Success Center appointments, and that someone had like some issues booking them. That might be because like, well, essentially to book an appointment here, you go onto the Student Success Center website, and then you'll be able to like kind of like select what kind of appointment you're looking for, like say like writing or math or like, I don't know, something else. Then you select it, and there'll be like a calendar with like potential like time slots, and then you just choose the one, you fill out like a little form, and that's basically it. Right now, since like school hasn't exactly started and you guys are like first year students, you might not be like booked into the system yet, so you might not be able to log on to the Student Success Center. So I would try it maybe in like a week or two, and if it's still not working, maybe call them or something like that. Finally, another place is, so these are like off campus, like they're not associated with the University of Calgary, but they are like, I guess, like tutoring programs. So these are like Beat Your Course, Prep 101. So not all of these, I guess, so they are potentially something you could look into, especially for the first semester midterms. All of the prep sessions that they offer are free. So this is a really great place to go to. Like if you just want to like go to a review session, you might as well just go to it, I guess. Yeah, and that's pretty much like the major resources for tutoring and academic help.
Okay, so another list of questions we have, we're talking about intramurals or other athletic fitness opportunities at the U of C. So we have the Active Living Center on campus. It's located in the Kinney/Olympic Oval area, and you can just visit their website to know about their times, the gym. We also have a pool on campus and all that. That's all in the Active Living Center, so you can just Google that. There's also, if you're living in residence, there's the Residence Athletic Association. They do a lot of in-residence physical activity initiatives, and it would be great to talk to your CA about that. Another question is, what's the best way to get to know our professor and make a good first impression? So the easiest way, in my opinion, is to talk to them in their office hours about something you find interesting in the course. You can introduce yourself and talk to them about which course you're from, why you're interested in this specific area, and just take the time to get to know them in that conversation. I think it's best to do this in office hours just because at the end of class there's usually a 10-person lineup and it's impossible to talk to them, and there's a lot of people and it's very crowded. So I think the best way to make a good first impression where you can prepare yourself and get to really have a good conversation with prof is in your office hours, which is, again, another reason why they are exceptionally important opportunities for U.S. students. Another question is it okay to buy a textbook of older edition for a certain course? This is a good question. The profs will talk about that in the first day. Sometimes there are significant changes and sometimes there isn't. So your prof will tell you if the older edition is still a viable option or not. If you are unsure between two editions, I would just wait and ask your prof on the first day. They are more than likely to mention that themselves on the first day. Another question is where to check for textbooks, and should I rent, buy new or used? So to check for your textbooks, you can go on the UC bookstore website. You can just Google that, and you would enter in your faculty, your course, and it will lead you to the page where there are any recommended textbooks or required textbooks. So you can rent from the bookstore. You can also go to Bound and Copied, which is a store run by the SU and sells used books. Now, whether or not you should rent, buy new or used books, it's up to how much you are going to use that textbook. If you're someone who really likes to highlight in the textbooks and write notes in the margins and stuff, I know I'm that kind of a learner, so to me, if I'm going to buy a used textbook, I'm going to make sure it doesn't have a lot of highlighting or anything in it, and it's a good way to save money. Or if I can't find a used textbook that I could still make my own, I would buy a new textbook. I personally really like the loose leaf textbooks just because I can carry them around a lot easier. Renting textbooks is also a very good idea. I just don't think it's available for a lot of the textbook options out there, but it's definitely worth your try.
Okay, so we got a question of if we're a slow writer or a typer or audio learner, can we use audio recorders in class for personal references? Generally, professors will not allow you to use personal recorders, unfortunately, but you can definitely ask the professor for permission either via email or asking in class, and potentially that is something that they will allow. But for the most part, professors don't allow audio recording, unfortunately. Another question is how early should one arrive for class on the first day? So the professors usually will not start class until the class start time. So anytime before that is pretty good, as you won't be missing any important material. Although if you are late, you might get a seat at the back of the class, or you may not even get a seat. So maybe 5 to 10 minutes early is really great if you prefer sitting closer to the front of the class. Also, what does SU stand for? SU stands for Students' Union. And then we also have, should we expect homework on the first day? So typically on the first day, the professors will go over the course outline and the structure of the course, their expectations and stuff like that. So typically there isn't any homework. They may assign some small readings just for like background reading and to get you started, but typically they won't assign anything that's really for marks.
Okay, so next question is there free Wi-Fi on campus? Yes, there is free Wi-Fi all over campus. It goes all the way from the train station to residence and through all your classes. Other question is, are there Kines tutors, subject-specific tutors? We can't speak from personal experience of Kines, but in terms of subject-specific tutors, there usually are subject-specific tutors, and you can find them at the Student Success Center. And you can also ask your program coordinator, so the Kines program coordinator, about any tutors in upper year that they know of. They're usually a good reference for this. And then you can also check the Kines website homepage for tutors. Next is how to pay for tuition even if you already applied for student loans. So if you applied for student loans, you have to wait until your student loans come in to pay. They won't go directly into your student finance center. It will go to your bank account, and then from your bank account you have to pay in the student center. If it doesn't come in for quite a while and it's approaching September 29th, before it's September 29th, we recommend that you speak to finance services. And then something you can also do is you can make sure all your forms are completed for student loans on the alice.alberta website. You can check your mailbox on this website, and make sure that all your bank information and all forms are signed. And then next question is, I am waiting for my visa, so I am going to miss all of orientation week and some classes. Do you have recommendations for who and where I should talk to once on campus to cover missed lectures as well as assistance in order to have easier transition to university? So there's various places that you can go to if you miss classes and you want to catch up in situations like this where maybe you're sick for long term, or if you are waiting for your visa and you do miss orientation week. One great place is the Student Accessibility Services. A lot of people assume that this is for people who have accessibility difficulties such as disabilities, but they also deal with students that are away for a while and that are also sick. And so here they would help you catch up. They will send you to the right resources. If you've missed exams, they can accommodate you. If you're waiting for your visa, I'm assuming that you're an international student, so places to go is the Welcome Center. They can pair you up with buddies to help you navigate around the school as well as your classes. CISA, which is the Center for International Students in Study Abroad. Here they can pair you up with tutors that help international students, as well as they can help you discuss the situation with your professor and program coordinator. You can also go to the Student Success Center, and they can pair you up with tutors as well to help you catch up in courses. And there's academic advising, which will help you with your mental health as you're going through, as you're trying to catch up, as well as academic advising in general.
Okay, so another question we had was, some courses don't have a location for tutorials. Do the professors tell us where they are, where they're going to have the tutorials? So yeah, if there's no information on like your My U of C yet regarding where your tutorials are, it's probably because they either haven't been booked yet, or the room hasn't been selected, or they're still looking for like a TA to run the tutorial. So definitely all this information and updates will be provided by your professor. Like they'll like update you if like when tutorials are going to start, where your room is and that kind of thing. Alternatively, it also might get posted on D2L. So this is totally normal. Sometimes tutorials won't actually start until 2 or 3 weeks after your classes first start, and they might also get delayed. So just I guess like listen to your professor, and he or she will give you updates on when your tutorials start and where they are. Okay, another question we had was, do professors post notes or lectures on D2L? So yeah, for the most part, your professors will upload like their slides or their notes that they write onto D2L. Throughout university, D2L is actually a really important resource because it'll have all your notes, all your worksheets, course outlines, and you'll probably do a bunch of quizzes on D2L as well. So definitely check D2L like pretty often. Okay, what if some courses don't have textbooks listed on the website? So in that case, we would recommend that you wait until your first class before purchasing your textbook. It might be that they either haven't updated the list yet, or maybe you don't need any textbooks at all. Either way, your professor will go over what textbooks you need, which ones are optional in your first lecture. Also, if you're worried about them running out of textbooks, or if you're missing out, this is totally okay. Lots of people sell textbooks throughout all of September, so you're not really missing out on anything. Just wait until the first class, and then you'll know for sure which ones you need. Okay, and then finally, we had a question about the best laptop for nursing. So none of us here are nursing students, so we don't exactly know, but we're going to tentatively recommend Apple just because it is pretty user-friendly. A lot of people have Apple computers, so it's pretty easy to collaborate, and it's just easy to take notes on. However, I would just go with, I guess, whatever you've used in the past, whichever works best for you. I'm sure most of them will work for nursing.
Okay. So the next question is how to log into Wi-Fi on campus. So there's various Wi-Fi portals that you can log into. One of them is called Secure, and the other is EduRoam. Whichever one you choose, the username that you use is the same username to log into your student center. And so it's usually your first name, period, your last name, and then if there's a number going into your student center or your University of Calgary email, you just put that number, and then your password is going to be the same password that you use for your UCalgary email as well as your student center. The next question says, how will I know what buildings my classes are in? Keys to the acronyms. So There's a U of C campus map legend that you can find online, as well as several locations throughout the school. And then the best place to go to, a place that I wish somebody had told me last year, was the U of C Interactive Room Finder, which is a website that we discussed before. If you just Google U of C Interactive Room Finder, it'll come up. You can put in a building name or acronym, as well as the class number, and it'll pull up exactly where it is in a map, and then you can navigate using that.
Okay, so another question we had was, does O-Week provide a campus tour? So yep, they definitely do. You'll go on a tour with your O-Week group. If you're wondering about what other kinds of activities there are during O-Week, you can look on the website for that, and they have like the full schedule there. There's like a bunch of like different events, social events, that kind of thing. So just look on the website if you are wondering. Okay, so another question we had was, is it possible that textbooks will not be used in class? Is it better to wait or to buy early? So for the most part, if a textbook is required for your course, your professor will like kind of expect you to use the textbook, right? So they'll either be assigning readings that you have to do on your own, or like practice questions for the exam. So in that case, if it says that the textbook is required, it is most likely that you will use it. I think the only case when people don't use their textbooks is that like if they don't do the readings, for example, but we recommend that you do your readings. So you use your textbook, I guess. In terms of when to buy it, like we said before, it's probably better to wait. A lot of people tend to buy early, but honestly, like again, you're not really missing out, and you can definitely buy it during September. Okay, and then finally, when do we, or not finally, I don't know. Anyways, when do we receive our student IDs or U passes? Is there any way to get them before O-Week? Okay, so in terms of your student ID, one way you can get it early is to submit your selfie online. So you can basically just like literally submit a picture of yourself with a white background. They have like a couple requirements for what type of picture they want, but you can just send that online, and then they'll have like your ID ready. Before like you get to school and everything. I'm not sure when the deadline for that is though, so you'll probably have to check on the website. In terms of your U-Pass, you have to get that, I think, when school starts, and there'll be like an office in Mac Hall where you can get it.
Okay, so the next question is, do we need computers? Yes, you need a computer for any and every program that you're in. There's like, other than like maybe a math class, you basically need a computer for every class. It's not quite like you can get whichever computer you prefer. Most people go with Windows or Apple, but that's totally up to you. And the next question is kind of related to that. It says, do first-year engineers need to have a Surface Pro or something similar? Surface Pro is the recommended computer for engineers based on personal experiences of knowing other engineers. But it doesn't have to be a Surface Pro exactly. It just needs to be Windows. You can't have an Apple or like MacBook in engineering, because there's lots of software that you need to download in engineering, and Windows is the only one that will support it. You also need a touch screen laptop, and Apple doesn't offer that yet. So it doesn't have to be a Surface Pro, but in short, it needs to be Windows. And so another question is there intramurals? Yes, there is intramurals. Most of them are run by the Residents Athletic Association. Although it is run by the Residents Athletics Association, you can join if you are outside of residence. You just have to be a student at the university. You can go on their website to join, or you can go to the Active Living Center and get information on that. Intramurals, generally speaking, indoor sports happen in the winter, so basketball, volleyball, badminton. Badminton is an upcoming event that may or may not happen, but volleyball and basketball, they happen in the winter, and things like soccer and outdoor sports happen in the fall and the spring. But yeah, there definitely is intramurals. You can check out the Active Living Center. Usually there tends to be a team fee, but it goes to a donation of a charity of their choice, kind of, and it doesn't cost a crazy amount. So check out the Active Living Center for that.
Our next question is, do we have to join the mentorship program? No, it's definitely optional. It's just something that we would recommend just because the mentorship program is a nice way to connect with upper year students or faculty, and you get a lot of great advice in terms of navigating university. So it could help you gain insight of what university is like, as well as get some support as you go through your first year. So while it's not required, it is something that we definitely recommend, as you also get to meet new people and make a lot of friends.
So the next question is, why is a touchscreen laptop recommended? And that's, it's generally speaking, so if you're in a class that just has notes, then generally speaking, no, you don't need to. But in engineering, you will be working with software, as well as doing equations using the various software, and so you do require a touchscreen. For other classes, touchscreen is not required, but it is recommended, because I found, for example, I had an Apple computer in health sciences, and so in courses such as biology, if I was typing up notes as the professor is talking and he draws a diagram, you can't quite draw a diagram very quickly using a mouse pad. So we do recommend that you get touchscreen, so drawing diagrams, labeling diagrams, all that is easier. But if you're not in engineering, mathematics, or physics, touchscreen isn't completely required.
Okay, so another question we had was, so if you're doing a combined major, are electives still required? So kind of how like the whole like finishing a major thing works, so is like basically for a major, you need to do 20 credits or 20 credits worth of classes. So for that, basically for each major, you'll have like some required classes, and then you'll also have like at least a couple electives, right? So the thing is, if you're doing a combined major, and none of us are combined majors, but from what I know about it, so for a combined major, you'll have to do 20 credits from both of your 20 full course credits for each of your majors, if that makes sense. And I guess if you want to finish your combined major in like a reasonable amount of time, I guess, like not like 10 years or anything, I would probably recommend taking like your electives for one major and filling them with the required courses for another major, if that makes sense. So for example, if you're doing like a science major and a music major, so your science major and like both majors, they're going to have like a certain number of space for electives. So for example, for science, maybe you require biology, but then you have an elective. So with that elective, I would probably put in a music course that's required for your major. And that way you can get 20 and 20 in kind of like, like a 4 or 5 year period. And then you'll get your combined major. So hope that answers your question.
Okay, so the next question says, what are the immediate steps I need to take, and what do I need to do as soon as I arrive to Calgary? So this is regarding Unicard, bank account, insurance, library, and payments. So if you've already registered for Unicard, which you specified in your email, then you just have to go to the Unicard office. If you're living in residence, that's going to be in the basement of the dining center. So you can just ask your CA for the Unicard office, and you can go there to pick up your Unicard. If not, there's also places around campus. I believe it's supposed to be a McEwen block this year, but like the McKinney library this year, but it changes from year to year, so don't quote me on that. I recommend that you ask around to get information. To get a bank account, there's several banks that are available during orientation week. They set up booths in Mac Hall, and you can look around, get some advice, and then pick the best bank to go with, and then you can select that bank. In terms of insurance, if you're talking about health insurance, you just have to pay the insurance fee. That's part of the student fees, and then you can get health insurance through that. And then if you're talking about insurance for your residence, you can get that through your you can get that through your home insurance. So if your parents have home insurance, a lot of times they'll also cover tenant insurance. But if you're not from Canada, Or in that case, actually, Alberta, you can't use that home insurance. Instead, you have to purchase home insurance from South. Okay, I can't quite remember, but basically in the Blue Room on the day of move-in day, as well as the week of orientation week, in the Blue Room in the dining center, they will be selling insurance. It's about $200, and it'll cover you for for damage that can happen with tenants. The library, I'm not quite sure what you meant by just the library, but there are several libraries, if that's what you're wondering. There's a Gallagher Library by the ICT, and then there's the TFDL, which is the main library, and that is located in front of Kenese. And then there's also a library in front of TFDL called McKinney Library. And then in terms of payments, the deadline for payments as well as to get insurance is September 29th, and so that's the deadline to pay your tuition as well as your residence fees. And then you all seem to be very concerned about laptops. So it says where to get more specifics about laptop requirements for specific programs. So you can do this if you have older peers in these programs, you can ask them. But also a great place is Facebook social groups. So a lot of groups, a lot of programs, for example, like health sciences, engineering, they all have specific Facebook social groups. And so you can search up the Facebook social group for the year above you, and you can just post in there asking about the specific laptop recommendation, and people will comment back quite fast usually, and they'll tell you better specifics about that. But generally, we do recommend that you don't have to worry too much about the laptop. For your first week, it's not going to make or break you. You don't need a laptop during orientation week, but during orientation week, you will meet older peers that are in your faculty, and a lot of times for the orientation week leaders, you are paired up with leaders that are in your faculty. So then you can ask them about that. You definitely don't need your laptop before orientation week. You can also ask your prof, so you can email them, but you should wait until you've asked older peers to do this, as profs tend to get a lot of emails.
Okay, so another question is, if you have applied to the mentorship program, how do you know if you've been accepted? So for the mentorship program, it really is based on how many mentors are available and how many mentees have signed up. And typically they will send you an email or whatever contact information you've provided them, saying that you've been matched to a mentor and something like that. And so yeah, it's mostly through emails. The next question is, how do you choose a minor for their degree? So a really great way to know what kind of minor you'd like to take is actually through elective courses. So I'm pursuing a psychology minor, and how I came to that decision was actually I took some psychology elective courses throughout my second and third year, and I found that I really enjoyed those courses, and so I've decided to pursue a minor. So it's really based on your interests and what you have enjoyed in the various courses that you've taken. And you can also talk to your academic advisor about minors and whether or not you should pursue one. And so, yeah, that's how you choose a minor.
I would also like to note that we are past our time, so we will answer a couple more questions, and then if you still have more questions, feel free to email us and we will email you back. And if there are people leaving at this point, we just want to say a quick thank you for joining us today, and we hope that this webinar has been helpful. But to continue answering questions, the next question says, will the bookstore have more used books for specific courses later on if they run out? So the bookstore doesn't sell used books, but there is a second bookstore next to the bookstore called Bound and Copied, and that bookstore specifically sells used books, and they are often for a lesser price. But in terms for the bookstore, they do have a fixed number of books, but then if they run out, they do order it if several people want it. Another option is if they do run out of books to sell, you can also rent a book for the year, and that will also be cheaper than buying a book, but you won't be able to keep it past the year. Sorry, but if you are looking for used books, Bound and Copied would be the place to go.
So last few questions. So first of all, how do we get the free Microsoft Office once school starts, or is it given out? So if you didn't know about it, you do get a free subscription to Microsoft Office as a U of C student. So you can download this online. It's like once you become a student, you get a UCalgary email on Outlook, and then you can download Microsoft Office through that. There's also a bunch of other like computer programs or apps that are available for free through the university. So if you're looking to get those, just go online and there will be download links for those. Okay, another question was, what buildings do we go to first on O week? So that should have been sent to you in an O week email that was sent. Each faculty will have like a different meeting place. I know for health sciences last year it was the TFDL quad, but it'll be different for all faculties and programs. So just take a look at the email that they sent. If you haven't received an email by now or in like the next couple of days, maybe like I don't know, ask them or something. But yeah, all that information should be in the email about like when to arrive, where to go, that kind of thing. So what is the cost of printing at the library? So it's 8 cents per page for black and white. I'm not really sure what color is, but it's like more expensive if it's color. Yeah, so 8 cents. Okay, and then another question was, is the UPass put on your Unicard when you pick it up? So no, it's not. You have to pick it up separately. So once you get your Unicard, you can go to you go to McKimmey Block to pick up the UPass, and then they'll like confirm that you're a full-time student, and then you can, it's basically like a sticker that you put on your Unicard, and they'll give that to you.
Okay, this question may have already been answered, but it says, do you have to go to everything during orientation week? No, you don't have to, but we do recommend it. A lot of times there's socials at the end of the day, and the people that you meet during those socials tend to be your friends for the rest of the year. Also, the people that are in your orientation week group you tend to get close to, and a lot of us made our study groups and our friend groups then. Somebody said, I came across an app called Pi to buy used books. Any ideas about that? In honesty, we have never heard of that website or app. And so we haven't used it. We have not heard of friends that have used it. I would recommend, again, joining a social group for your faculty in the year above you, and then posting about that, and you will get specifics on that. But in terms of apps, the University of Calgary doesn't endorse any apps like that. So it's a little shady, honestly, to use an app like that, because you don't really know what you're going to get. Personally, I would not recommend it, but you can definitely ask older peers if they know about that. Somebody said, going into chem, what is the recommended laptop? Again, with laptop, personally, although I did buy a MacBook and I went into health sciences, which is quite similar, I did find that in my chem classes, people that had touchscreen laptops made better use, because a lot of times you are going to be drawing diagrams, especially for first year chem courses, because so with atoms, all that, you're going to be drawing diagrams. It's quite difficult to do so using a MacBook. So we don't really have a preference in terms of Windows versus like Jesus and all of those others. Just make sure that it's touchscreen if you are going into chem. Again, you can wait until the end of orientation week to buy, because you can ask your orientation leader about that. So that seems to be it for questions. We thank you for joining us for this webinar. And we thank you for joining us for this webinar. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we hope that it is helpful. You can give us feedback on our website or through our email. And you can like us on Facebook and Instagram. And the next webinar is going to be in November. So if you are interested, you can definitely look on our website again, and we will have information on our next webinar. That webinar is going to be more on settling into university, as well as scholarship opportunities for those that are in high school. So if you have siblings or family in high school, this is a great webinar. So thank you again for listening in.